This is the Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIcke.com.
Right then, we're going to get our first guest on without any further ado. The man needs very little introduction from me. He's had an incredible 2016 thus far. He began the Worldwide Wake Up Tour back in June of this year. It's been extraordinarily successful. This year also saw the release of his latest book, Phantom Self, which has been an incredible success as well. 2017 is going to be major. He's going to be appearing. It's almost a case of where he's not going to be appearing on the Worldwide Wake Up Tour. Do go to theworldwidewakeup.com. Let's welcome back to the programme our friend David Icke. And the call has just dropped out as I was just about to say hello to him. So we'll get him back on there. So a number of questions coming in about different things. But just to let you know, we primarily are going to be talking about the US presidential election for this hour. Now, the reason for that is David is away to Estonia next week, and I won't be able to get him on the programme next week around the election and around the result. There might be just a minor problem getting him on. The best laid plans of mice and men. Said I'd forego the news to give us more time with David, and then our Skype was giving us problems. But anyway, let's welcome him to the show live from the Isle of Wight. It is David Icke. How are you?
I'm all right, Rich. Yeah, my Skype decided to update, whatever that means.
Does stuff like that. Murphy's Law, it's called. Murphy's Law. I tweeted out there, heads up, I'm going to be with David at the very beginning. Forget the news, and of course that happened. But look, I'm delighted you're on the show. Massive year for you, huge year. The tour has been absolutely spectacular so far, and 2017 is going to be extraordinary, right?
Well, it seems like that, yeah. I mean, many years ago, I gave the opinion that 2016, 2017, 2018 were going to be pivotal years in where all this went. And certainly, I'm seeing tremendous changes around the world in people who are looking at this information in a new way, in a different way. And not only at the level that we see on the news, but actually the deeper stuff, the stuff that would have been considered not that long ago, and still by many people still today, absolutely far out and crazy. More and more people are starting to realize at a much, much deeper level that the world, reality, everything is not like they thought it was. In fact, it's nothing like they thought it was. And what we're seeing now in the election in America is it's not actually a sideshow in the sense of its effect on the world of the scene, but it's a fraction of what's actually going on in the world. And if we only think that change is going to happen by changing the puppet in the White House or anywhere else, then we're going to miss the plot and miss a wonderful opportunity. Because it seems to me that what is happening, Richie, in America is actually, on the face of it, a diabolical thing. What's happening? A circus, a ludicrous circus and puppet show. But actually, on another level, it's a good thing, because I have smiled and shook my head many times in the last few weeks where these emails have come to light. And they are revealing in literally black and white what people like me have been saying for 20 odd years, that politics is deeply corrupt. It's run by a handful of people, and the mainstream media is in cohorts with it. And of course, now we have that in undisputable fact that's come out in the last few weeks and months, and also the proof, as if we needed it, but when we see it, in words and sentences, it seems to go in at a deeper level to see that what politicians are saying in public against what they're saying in private is completely different, and that leads to this question. If they are saying something publicly and saying something else privately, then that in itself is proof of a conspiracy, because what they're saying publicly is to hide the fact of what they really intend to do privately. And we see this again and again with politicians, not least Barack Obama, this extraordinarily potent example of everything I'm talking about, whereby they say one thing to get elected and they say or do another once they get in office. And I think, this is true of both candidates. I mean, we're being given here the choice between a disaster and a catastrophe. And Donald Trump, he may say some of the right things for some parts of the alternative media, but does he believe anything he says? I mean, how do we know that? His whole history is of saying one thing and doing another. And then we've got Hillary Clinton, of course, who is a lifetime servant to this hidden hand that's behind it all. And I heard the interview you did last night with the CIA case officer, Robert Steele, where he described Hillary Clinton as being in the upper levels of the serving class, serving the 1%, or the slave class, serving the 1%. I think he's got it absolutely right. And therefore, what we're looking at in this choice, even if you can call it a choice, is really a choice between two puppets, and how they serve this actually in the end less than 1%. But what's great about it is so much is coming out, and because it's coming out, people are losing their faith in the system, and that is absolutely crucial for people to see on a much deeper level that the world they live in and the world they always thought they lived in is not the world they actually live in.
You were writing about her back in... Now, I wasn't reading you at the time. I would have been in my early 20s. That's no excuse for not reading, but I didn't know very much about what you were doing. But you were writing about her and him and the crimes of that family as far back as, I think, the Robots Rebellion, which is back in 94 or 95. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I've got a book in front of me now. It's called And the Truth Shall Set You Free. I wrote the first edition in 1994. And in that book is a big expose of the Clinton family, or the him and her Clinton level of the family anyway. In that book, I talk about the Clinton body count. I mean, we're talking 1994 when I wrote the first edition of that. It came out in 1995. And I'm talking about the Clinton body count. Even back then, there were a long list of people who had either crossed the Clintons or had something on them. And shall we say they were no longer with us.
Disappeared.
And then all these years later, and we're now in 2016, they're talking about the Clinton body count. I mean, it's absolutely massive, the number of people who've had this overwhelming desire to shoot themselves in the head or crash their light plane.
Yeah.
Whenever they have something on the Clintons. It's an extraordinary story. And one of the things that I highlight in And the Truth Shall Set You Free in regard to the Clintons is their closeness to the Bushes. I mean, they're not opponents. They are very close associates. And I describe in that book how they together were running drugs through the Mena airstrip in Arkansas when Clinton was governor. It was all part of this Iran-Contra running drugs for arms and all that stuff that went on at that time. And there were a number of people, not least two boys, who were removed and disposed of, shall we say, because of what they've seen or what they knew. So this goes way, way back. I mean, we are talking here in terms of Hillary Clinton, someone who is deeply, deeply, deeply psychopathically, seriously, mentally ill. And I don't say that in terms of symbolism or for effect. I'm talking literally. She is seriously, psychopathically, mentally ill. The people around her are terrified of her. Her tantrums and furies are legendary. A number of her former bodyguards have come out and basically told the same story at different times. So that's what we're dealing with, but because she is such a unquestioning servant to this less than 1%, she's had this political career, and she's had much, and certainly for a long, long time, and still to an extent that real truth hasn't come out. She's been protected from what she is through a compliant media. We know about that clearly now through these emails, and also by the people who are behind her. For instance, I mean, two of her supporters are George Soros and Robert Kagan. Robert Kagan being a co-founder of the Project for the New American Century that listed the countries that it wanted America to invade and take over before 9/11, and those are the countries that have been targeted since 9/11. So they are behind her, and if they are behind her, then their agenda is her agenda, and thus, if she gets in, then the whole move and momentum towards a conflict with Russia will be massively advanced and made more extreme. And then on the other side, this interests me. You've got, I mean, there you've got George Soros and Robert Kagan, who are extreme Zionists. And then on the other side, you've got this guy Sheldon Adelson, this casino billionaire, another extreme Zionist, who's spending tens of millions to support Donald Trump. And people like Soros and Kagan and Adelson will be answering to the same master and following the same agenda. So basically, we're back again to this whole concept of if you control both sides, you control the game.
Can I just ask you on that, David? Can I just interject on that? This is a really central point, because when we've on this program, when I say we, I don't mean you and I mean we on the program have hammered Trump, because I've always felt it was important to show Trump in his true skin as much as Clinton. For me, it was always obvious what Clinton is, at least to people in the independent media. What they keep coming back and saying to us is, and you're answering it right now, and I've jumped in there, but I just want to say this. They come back and they say, all right, well, okay then, so he's a billionaire and he's a system man, but the agenda will slow down a bit because he won't be as easy to control and he won't rush headlong into conflict with Russia and then further on China. So what do we say to people like that in the independent media, the so-called independent media, who say Trump will slow the agenda down?
Well, Clinton and Trump are not the same person. And Hillary Clinton has been in this for so long from a political point of view. I mean, she's got this agenda imprinted in her DNA. So on one level, she will be easier and quicker to do things, sure, because Donald Trump's, first of all, got to be brought up to speed in an arena that he knows nothing about, basically. But the thing is that in the end, both of them will serve this agenda. I mean, we must surely by now lose the naivety of believing that what someone says in an election campaign is what they will do. How can anyone still hold on to that naivety after our experience of Barack Obama?
Yeah.
The Mr. Change, everything was going to be different. And what it's been for 8 years is business as usual, because he's followed the same agenda as George Bush the son did. Because there is a hidden hand that controls both parties, and thus whoever's in power, that hidden hand is in power. And when you look at the control they have of the Republican Party and the control they have of the Democrat Party, if they wanted to stop Donald Trump, they could have stopped him before he ever got the nomination. I mean, we've seen there's so much stuff to come out about him and a lot of stuff that hasn't yet. Therefore, that could have been brought up months ago. by those that wish to stop him even getting the nomination. But he's got the nomination. And it's kind of interesting to me. I was just thinking this today. We have a situation now, just a few days from this election day on Tuesday, where Hillary Clinton has a chance of winning because she's against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has a chance of winning, if the polls are to be believed, because he's against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
It's madness, but this is the natural end product of where this political system has been going, decade after decade after decade. We now have clearly two candidates put up by the same network, in effect, that the vast majority of the American public don't want. It just shows you the power that these people have to control the political system, to bring that about.
You touched on something very important as well when you talked about Trump getting the nomination, because some of our listeners they're not the ones, the loudmouths who scream and shout and abuse. They're more thoughtful and they're supporting Trump, and they say, Richie, come on. Obviously, you can tell Trump is independent because the Republicans have abandoned him. They've all run away from him, Jeb Bush and Paul Ryan and all the rest of them. That's proof enough. And it kind of staggers me, David, that they don't consider that. Again, that is easily manipulated. And you just said there, they knew all the things, all the shady things that he's been involved in. They knew all this stuff. They could have snuffed him out, and I don't mean in the terminal way, at the very beginning by leaking all the things that they had on him. But they didn't.
But the whole thing is a stage show. It's a perception deception. We need to understand this, otherwise we're going to get caught. It's all a psychological game. It's about selling a perception of reality to the public, so the public will respond in the way that suits your agenda. And really, unless you're like in the rooms with these guys in the shadows, you can't call every detail of why something is happening. Sometimes it's with the benefit of hindsight that you can see, I can see why they did that now. And what I'm seeing is a gathering attempt to create monumental chaos. Of course, the 33rd degree of Freemasonry, ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos, which I call problem, reaction, solution. And the more problems that you can generate, the more chaos you can generate, the more solutions you can offer. Now, the political system as we know it is not the way they want it to be. They want to move it on into world governments and European Union type structures all around the world under different names. What we're having here, and it's interesting that these extreme billionaire Zionists are funding both candidates where they answer to the same master. We're seeing chaos unfolding. This latest FBI revelation by this James Comey guy, the FBI, it's all throwing chaos and confusion into what's going on. The migrant crisis in Europe is another aspect of that. What's going on in the Middle East with Syria and Russia, etc. These are all parts of, and the Black Lives Matter attempt to get a race war going in America. These are all efforts to create chaos and fear and upheaval in every area of life. And we are at the moment facing a point of great danger from that point of view, but also great opportunity. The danger is that in this chaos and in this complete kind of endgame lack of confidence and respect for the political system, as people see how absolutely rigged it is, and in all these other areas of chaos that are being manipulated, that people will buy the system's solutions to that chaos, which will take us even deeper into the hole. But it's a great opportunity in another way, that this realization, because as part of creating this chaos and complete lack of confidence in the political system in America because of what's been going on, they also have to bring to the surface some of what's been hidden in terms of how it's all rigged. And therefore, if people can respond to that in a different way and not buy the solutions they put forward, but just get the fact that this chaos is being created so that solutions that change the nature of society and the political system can be put forward, then we've got a chance of taking advantage of what's happening rather than being scammed by it, which is what the agenda is all about.
Now, you're going to stay with us till the top of the hour. I'm going to just take a 60-second break. When we come back, David Icke is on the line live from the Isle of Wight this Wednesday, November 2nd. When we come back, I'm going to ask David, does he think the collective alternative media has missed a massive trick here, with the opportunity maybe being missed to really go after this system in a way that maybe we did before, maybe we're not doing now. So we'll get into that in 60 seconds. David is going to stay with us. Loads of tweets coming in just to see what other people are tweeting. Put Richie Allen Show, all one word, into Twitter, press enter, and then you can chat with everybody else. There are a lot of questions coming in. We are going to focus on the US election for most of the rest of the time we have, and I think we're asking most of the questions that you're putting to me anyway. So I'm going to quickly take a break. Back in a minute with more.
Do you want to release the full potential of your soul consciousness and find out how to experience that power in all areas of your life now? Go to livingasyoursoul.com for free guidance with in-depth how-to articles, free healing meditations of creation recordings, free soul solutions, and much, much more. livingasyoursoul.com, making the profound practical.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIcke.com.
Now, do go to theworldwidewakeup.com. That's the website. David is in Estonia a week on Saturday. Then he's in the Netherlands. All the details on theworldwidewakeup.com. And he's travelling the world in 2017. I'm sure he's going to be in a town or at a town somewhere near you. Find out. Go to davidicke.com or theworldwidewakeup.com. Great to have you on the programme, David, and short notice as well with you being away next week. I'm delighted that you've come on tonight. Huge interest in this. So I'm not going to ask this in the usual long-winded way that I ask long questions. Has the independent media missed the trick with this being the most obvious election we've ever had, showing that the whole thing is an illusion, democracy doesn't exist, it's all rigged? Have we collectively, present company excluded, have we missed a big trick here?
I think parts of the alternative media have. See, I can understand it at these different levels. I can understand that people who've done any research on Hillary Clinton over the years will be horrified about her getting in. And if parts of the alternative media had said, look, it's all rigged, and let's look at this system. Let's look at how we can be given this choice. But in our opinion, Clinton is so bad, and we know she's so bad. Donald Trump is an unknown quantity because he's never had political office. So what we're doing is saying, best of a bad job. I mean, I can understand that level of thinking. What I can't understand in the same way is this trumpeting of Trump, this presenting Trump as if he's some kind of savior who's going to change everything. And it's very easy. I mean, I don't want to get into too many deep things here tonight, but when the only world that you can see is the world of the seen, the world of the five senses, that's all you can see. Then, as they say, if all your if your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. All you can see is five sense answers, and if you over years keep pointing out the problem, and then see no answers, because the answers don't lie in the world of the seen, then you can start looking for answers in the old way, and get pulled back into the political system as if the political system is an answer. It's not. And I think if we'd have gone into this by targeting the system and constantly emphasizing how did this come about, and point out that that these elections are not just rigged against Donald Trump, as parts of the alternative media are saying, and I think there's truth in that to an extent, certainly in certain areas of the media for sure, but that all these elections are rigged. I mean, when was the last time there wasn't one? You might, I mean, if you've got someone who's miles ahead of someone else, well, you don't need to rig that.
No.
But anything where it's to and fro, I mean, how many haven't been rigged? I mean, have we forgotten Al Gore and Boy George Bush and Florida and all that in 2000? I mean, and now we have these electronic voting systems. I mean, when I first went to America, Richie, years and years ago now, and I noticed just in those days that they were just starting to bring them in, I was saying to people, what are we doing? Letting electronic voting in. It's the easiest thing in the world to scam. And now, of course, Soros is very much involved in voting machines and stuff like that. But it's becoming clear. I mean, there was a video on my website yesterday where they're explaining technically how easy it is to turn a vote for one person that someone makes into being recorded as a vote for someone else. It's madness. The whole system is crazy. The whole system has reached a point of absolute lunacy. And it's the system we should be focusing on, about how this could come about, rather than literally trumpeting up one candidate as the savior. He's not. And I think we'll see a very different Donald Trump pretty soon after he came to office, if he did. I think we have. Well, I say parts of the alternative media have lost a bit of focus on where the problem really lies, and in some ways, in desperation for finding some answers. Because if you're looking around only in the world of the seen for answers, you're not going to find them. You're going to find them in the world that you can't see, which is where this whole world comes out of anyway. But that's deeper stuff and for another day. So I can understand why, in some desperation, people are saying, well, it's like if you're desperate for a solution, then you can persuade yourself that something's a solution when it's not, because you can't see any other way out of it. And if you are operating at that level, then you're going to look for a candidate who's going to make the change. I mean, in the past, it's been people like Ron Paul who people have got behind, and now it's Donald Trump. But I think Donald Trump is a very, very different character to Ron Paul in terms of where he's coming from.
You've got a lot of patience. It's probably down to the fact that you've been doing what you've been doing for a lot longer than most people. I think people who've been reading the research by people like you for a short time or a mid kind of length time, we don't really have any patience. I think you've been very fair there. And I think you're right as well. It's not necessarily malevolent. It's desperate people that are sick to death of what's going on. And I think you touched on something very important there when you said, so evil is this woman and her family that people like me maybe need to be a little bit more patient with people whom are endorsing Trump, because, they're maybe closer to it in terms of geographically closer to her and what she is and what she does than we are. And it's not necessarily malevolent when they back Trump,
Yeah, I think the train of thought with many people is she's a given. She's a given. What she will do is a given because of her history and her extraordinarily imbalanced mental state. He is an unknown because he's never been in politics before. But what I'm saying is, I do understand that train of thought, and good luck to people if they make that decision. However, what I'm saying is the system will be in control, which either of them, whichever of them get in. For instance, um, whether Hillary Clinton wins or Donald Trump wins, Israel wins. I mean, look at it. You've got Hillary Clinton, when Israel says jump, she breaks the Olympic high jump record.
Yeah.
You've got Donald Trump, who's the same, who's only this week been defending these illegal settlements on Palestinian land in the West Bank. I mean, he is extremely, extremely close to the whole Israeli Zionist mafia, both sides of the Atlantic, in Israel and in America. So is she. So Israel will win either way. Now, then you ask the question: what is it about Israel with a sliver of land in the Middle East and a population of not much more than 8 million people? Well, the answer to that is Rothschild. Rothschild is Israel. They are the family that created the Israel that we know today, and control it. And therefore, to say they are on their knees to Israel, and both of them are, means they're on their knees to Rothschild. I mean, even more openly, the Rothschilds are supporting Clinton, but the same with Trump. And therefore, if we get caught in forgetting that the system is not just rigged against one candidate, whichever that candidate may be at any one time, it is fricking rigged. It's rigged far more deeply than favoring one candidate over another. It's rigged so deeply that it doesn't matter which candidate gets in ultimately, although they'll have a preference, because that hidden hand will be in the White House either way. I mean, like I say, we've seen that with Bush, and we've seen that with Obama. How more different could you get two people presenting themselves than those two?
Do you know, I'm laughing actually.
Sorry, business as usual.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm laughing, David. I'm laughing at. I tell you what's making me laugh. I'm visualising a story you told me a few years ago about when you were in Los Angeles talking before the 2008 presidential election. And the optimism, and I was guilty of this, even though I'd already at that stage read some of your books and some of Jim's books. But even at that stage, I was still suckered into it. And I was thinking, great, a black man is going to win the presidency. Things are going to change. And at that time, you were in Los Angeles telling an audience who didn't like it very much, this is what's going to happen when Obama wins. And, I mean, tell our listeners that story. They might not know that.
Well, it was just before the election that when Obama got in for the first time, and I was talking in Los Angeles, and it was a great night. It was a great event. I loved it. But when I was talking about Obama being no different to anyone else, and when he gets into power, if he got into power, it looked like he would at that time, then he would just be a puppet for the same network that Bush was a puppet for. I mean, you could have heard a bloody pin drop, really. I mean, and you were getting the vibes. Okay, we liked it up to this point, but we're not like this so much now. And I remember talking to an American talk show host, a Los Angeles talk show host, afterwards, and he said to me, "I'll bet you anything you want that you're wrong about Obama." And I remember saying to him, "Look, mate, I don't want to take your money, so I won't make the bet.
I'll do you a favor.
I'll do you a favor because you see, this is what I'm talking about here, about putting away personalities which are there to entice you and to misdirect you and to pull you into cul-de-sacs. Look at the system, and the system means that you do not run for president unless you are acceptable to the system. You just don't do it. The idea that Barack Obama would come out of nowhere, again, with no real political experience, and suddenly would get himself in the White House, having attracted record amounts of funding from people like Goldman Sachs and all these institutions of the hidden hand, is absolutely ridiculous. He was chosen, and he was chosen at that time because they wanted to see what you've got. It's a circus and it's a stage show, and the stage show is there to hide the system, the unmoving, every time the same system. So to do that, they have to entice you. They have to get you interested, and therefore pulled in. It's literally like watching a movie, and very early on, the scenes are trying to pull you in. So you basically make contact with a movie and you go with it to the end. And so we have the first black president. Okay, that got people interested. This young black guy coming out of nowhere. Oh, that's interesting. That's different. And of course, he was pushing the word different and the word change and all the way through it. And he gets into power, and he's just another version of Bush, following the same agenda, which is why the countries that he invaded in the Middle East were on the same list of countries that Bush started invading, the same list of the Project for the New American Century in September 2000, the co-founder of which, Robert Kagan, is supporting Hillary Clinton, even though he's a Republican and she's a Democrat, because they're just names for the same masks on the same face. So now you've got both. Oh, this could be the first woman president. I see today Obama's pushing that. Men, you're sexist if you don't vote for her. Basically, that was the underlying theme of his speech, and yet. Hillary Clinton would be a disaster for women, just as Obama has been a disaster for black people in so many ways. And here's a lady who's going to be a bastion, a leader of women's rights and emancipation, who's taken millions and millions of dollars from the Saudi royal family that treats women in the most grotesque way.
Millions.
Words cannot describe the extraordinary way that women are treated in Saudi Arabia. I spent 8 weeks there once many years ago in the 70s, and I saw it. It was absolutely horrific. And on the other side, not just have we got an interest in the stage show, the movie, or she's pushing the glass ceiling, this is women. We've got this Donald Trump character, this kind of pantomime villain character who's there, and it is a show. And look at it. If you look at what's been discussed and what this election is about, it's not about what these two will do. It is about what these two have done. That's what it's all about. There's nothing of any substance about policy. If I get in, I will do this, I will do that. Just platitudes and one-liners. I'll build a wall and all this stuff. But the whole focus has been on what those people have done, whether it's emails, whether it's other kind of corruption, and the Clinton Foundation, whether it's what he's done with women or what he's done with his businesses. It's all about what they've done. It's not about what they will do. There's virtually no policy discussed. There's a very good reason for that, because the policy is already decided what will happen if they get into power, either of them. And that is decided by that which is in the shadows, not publicly playing a part in the stage show.
Do you know, speaking of firsts for women, if she does get in, another first for women, Bono was named on Glamour magazine's Women of the Year list today, which you sent me a link to, and I know you were laughing at it, but there's something a bit more serious going on there as well. That's just utterly bizarre. This former rock star who was once recommended to be the next president of the World Bank. That'd be a first as well if he won the Women of the Year award. These are crazy times, aren't they?
Yeah, they're crazy times, but they're all explainable. Yeah. I mean, we could do another hour on the meaning in the bigger picture sense of things like Bono being named on the Women of the Year list. I mean, it is bizarre, but we do live in bizarre times because two things: A, the system is starting to break down. And many things are going on. On one side, the system is breaking down, and it's breaking down in the minds, in the psyches of increasingly large numbers of people. What I mean by that is people's worshipping of it, people's unquestioning acceptance of it is breaking down, and that's a very, very good thing. But at the other point, and it's all happening together, which is why this is a crazy time, is we are being prepared to go into some very, very crazy places in terms of the way this world is designed to change. Taking us into the whole area of transhumanism, taking us into the whole area eventually, and we're seeing the stepping stones now very clearly coming out regularly, into the area of synthetic humans, which in the end, as Aldous Huxley basically was describing in Brave New World, people will not even be born as a result of procreation, but born as a result of what goes on in laboratories. This is where what all this synthetic human and synthetic genome area is going. There's a big chunk of the World Tour presentation where I talk about this, and people's eyes kind of go wider when I'm putting this together in relation to what's going on now, because when you do, it's painfully obvious what's going on now. And as I say in the talks, I couldn't care less how people see themselves sexually. It's none of my business whatsoever. It's their business. I have a simple philosophy: do what you like, so long as you don't impose it on anyone else. Which is actually, for me, if we did that, they wouldn't need any laws, would they? Because you wouldn't be imposing what you want on anyone else. Therefore, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, are not necessary in a world where people do not impose their will on everyone else. Unfortunately, they do in vast numbers today. Therefore, these things are necessary. It's just another level of consciousness. But so I don't care how people see themselves in terms of their sexuality, whatever. It's none of my business. And people of transgender, as it's called, should be respected for their choice. But the point is that if we're going to be streetwise, we need to ask ourselves why this whole transgender situation has exploded out of nowhere into the public arena, and how there are more and more and more examples that children and young people, particularly children, are not being respected for feeling that they're in a different sexuality to the one that their body is presenting, but that they are being encouraged, very much encouraged, to question how they see themselves. It's not a matter of accepting and supporting a choice that's been made, but manipulating more and more people to question how they see themselves, to bring about other choices that would not have been there without the. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? I mean, we've had documents going out. I think they were stopped when they were exposed in the media, giving young kids 25 different genders to choose from in terms of how they saw themselves. This is not about supporting transgender people. This is about fusing the lines of how people see themselves. And this is all part, I mean, we can't go into it tonight, but I do in the talks at some length at one point. This is leading us to this, not a transgender society. This is preparing us mentally, psychologically for the no gender society, which is what this synthetic human race in the transhumanist world of people like Ray Kurzweil and all these other front men for Frankenstein, where we're being pushed. It's all part of that preparation. So again and again, you're seeing situations where people are being encouraged to question how they see themselves and to fuzz the lines between the genders. And it's not something that, like I say, it's happening naturally. Oh, I feel more like a female than a male, even though I've got a male body, etc. I mean, fair enough. That that's your choice. How you feel is your choice. It's not about that. It's about encouraging people to question what they wouldn't normally question, especially young kids. And it's all part of this agenda moving us towards the no gender humans that people have talked about, have been on the inside for a long time.
Well, it's that's a good opportunity to mention a story that you covered on davidicke.com/headlines today. And that's the 10th grade high school assignment where the child was asked to consider what he or she would say if they were the president. No, I've gotten that wrong. The president is giving you the opportunity to make a televised speech to the nation. What would you say to persuade people to get a microchip? That was an assignment given out. That's not coincidental, that.
No, this is when you look at the way the education system operates. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious. You have the minds of young people from the age of 3 and 4 right into their teenage years, all day, most days of every week. And there they are under your control, where you are controlling the information they receive. You're controlling the emphasis. It's all a massive. The education system in general is a massive psychological psyop. But this whole thing with gender, which is, like I say, I've said many times, if something comes out of nowhere and is suddenly everywhere very quickly, it's the agenda, right? It's not something that comes out organically and then grows, but boom, it's just there. And it's then everywhere. That's the agenda. I mean, we've seen that, for instance, with fracking. Fracking came out of nowhere, didn't it? And then was everywhere.
Out of nowhere.
And it's the same with this transgender thing. And it's not about protecting people who see themselves in certain sexual ways. Like I say, good luck to them. It's their choice, none of my business. It's not about that. It's about preparing us for the no gender human race. And they want to bring that in a lot quicker than people would even begin to imagine. So things like it may sound not important, and it may sound banal, although it sounds strange, but to put Bono on a list of Women of the Year, what is that doing?
I shouldn't laugh, I'm sorry, because I'm not trying to in any way diminish what you're saying, but I can't help but laugh.
What is that doing psychologically?
Yeah.
It's doing what I've just said, Rich. It's fusing and fuzzing the lines, even things like that. But it's not one thing that's doing it. It's the accumulation of lots of these things that are doing it. And this is why they're coming out all over the place. I mean, where the schools more and more are having transgender days. They're having situations where you can't refer to mum and dad, and they don't want you to refer to each other as boys and girls. I mean, this is happening. It's a psyop. It's a psyop.
Yeah.
And if people don't like that and they say you're this or you're that, well, good luck to you, mate. I don't give a damn what you think about me. I care about what's happening, because if we're not streetwise and we don't see how these things fit, then we'll get absolutely scammed. And of course, I think that the one of the problems with the alternative media, because of course that's a massive spectrum, not just one thing, is that it's not alternative enough, and in the same way, whether it's global warming, whether it's transgender, whether it's political correctness in all its forms, these are being pushed by this area of belief, which has become known, thanks to the word they've used in America for a long time, progressives, basically left of center. Progressives, the biggest problem with progressives is they're not progressive. This is the problem. They're not progressive. They are just following an agenda coming out of the hidden that they simply do not understand. And they're being played like a stringed instrument to push this agenda on. Political correctness, for instance, is about silencing people. So we don't have the free flow of information and view and opinion because people are terrified of the consequences. Oh, there's a Twitter storm and all that stuff.
Yeah,
no, I'll get on my knees and apologize for saying something perfectly reasonable. I mean, I was thinking of getting an image of a finger, stuck in the air, so I could post that every time there's a Twitter storm about something I've said, because that's how I feel. People have a right to express their opinion, and if we don't, and we shut up because we fear the reaction of others, then these people get the whole control of the flow of information. So this is what's happening now with the big internet giants. I say giants plural, they're actually giants singular if you go deep enough in the rabbit hole. People like Facebook and Google. The idea is to get control of the main channels of communication of information. And once you've got a big enough control, then, and we're well there now, then you can start deciding what is communicated and what isn't. And if you look at this whole political correctness, this whole transgender political correctness stuff, that is now setting the parameters for censorship on the internet and censorship on Facebook and these other internet means of communication. You can't say that. You can't put that picture up. It's to someone who studied this for over a quarter of a century, the whole thing is so simple and so obvious what's going on, and the antidote to that is not to concede our right to speak our truth, not to concede our right to speak our opinion and our view, because we fear the consequences of doing so. We've got to keep doing it, otherwise where do we go? Except that which wishes to control us gets the entire control of the means of communication. We mustn't let that happen.
Do you know, we're nearly going to run out in time, but I wanted you to mention one thing. You did a really lovely thing, you and Linda and Jamie and Gareth and everybody at davidicke.com. A few weeks ago, our listeners will remember Vanessa Bates came on the program. In fact, again, it was down to you. You got me, you gave me the heads up the morning of the story in the Mail. Vanessa is the mother of Max Spears, the researcher who died in very, very mysterious circumstances in the summer in Warsaw. And you were following it closely. And based on your recommendation, I rang Vanessa and got her on the program. And it was a very heartfelt and very difficult story that she tells about her son. It must be very raw. It's only been a few months. But she needed a few quid. She was going to do a crowdfunding campaign to pursue with getting an inquiry into what happened to him over there in Poland. And I know you certainly did not want any public recognition of it, but I kind of took the initiative and said, well, I don't care, because things are said about people like you and your motivation. So I put it out there. You, to your absolute credit, and we love you for it, gave Vanessa the £1,000. She was thrilled with it. There's good news on that front, isn't there?
Well, I saw an email from Vanessa that was sent to the office today. I only saw it about 2 or 3 hours ago, in which she said that the inquest has been secured. So I hope that's correct, because that was the whole point. See, the thing is that I don't know what happened to Max, and none of us do. But there was a lady, a mother, who's lost her son. She's obviously completely confused about what's happened and all the things that have gone on in terms of it not being investigated and delays in autopsy reports, etc. She's entered a world that is it can be very confusing if you're not experienced there, and the alternative media spends so much time attacking itself. We should be working together. Yes, we have different opinions and we can differ on those and we can express those. We should do that. But in the end, surely we're working to the same end. And here was a guy who was doing his best to uncover things and communicate them. And there are questions. I don't know what happened to him. I'm not giving an opinion, but there are questions here. And, we need to stick together. And when, someone like Vanessa, his mother, was in that situation, of course, if you can help, then you help. I mean, isn't that what we're here for? To look after each other and to support each other so that we can together make a difference. Because if we go on saying it's not my problem, because it doesn't immediately affect me, well, we're going to get us anywhere.
It was a brilliant gesture, David. And I got a text from her later this afternoon where she said she's thrilled with the news that her lawyer gave her about this being reopened and an inquiry to take place about the circumstances around his death. It was a wonderful thing. Look, have an absolute blast in Estonia next week. It's going to be amazing. Of course, the timing of this is amazing, with NATO revealing that, if they could get any closer to Russia and the Black Sea and all of that, these are incredible times for you to be speaking in these countries.
It's extraordinary, Estonia, because that's where they're sending British troops and other NATO troops to Estonia. The poor Estonians. I mean, they've been occupied by the Nazis, they've been occupied by the Soviet Union, and now they're occupied by NATO. And one of the things I'll be saying there is, if you want to look at the enemy, the immediate enemy, the most important enemy that you have, don't look at the Russian border. Turn around and look the other way, because it's what's behind you and what's around you that's the enemy. Because NATO is just a war machine that the hidden hand uses to plunder the world. And if it's massively building up along the Russian border in places like Estonia, then it's not for any other reason than the agenda is unfolding.
And of course, when you take the stage in Estonia a week on Saturday, we'll know who the next puppet US president is. Folks, go to theworldwidewakeup.com. David is in Amsterdam the following week, and then 2017, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of dates all over the world. Check out the website there. Thanks for giving us your time today, David. Have a great week next week and beyond, and I'll see you in Amsterdam. Can't wait.
Thanks, mate. Manchester is not terribly many tickets left.
No, how can I not mention that? I'm an idiot. Of course, on the 14th of January,
14th,
which is going to be Sunday, that as well.
And Dublin the week after.
And the capital, Ballyoclea, as we say, the following week in Ireland. Tickets selling like hotcakes, literally, for those events.
It's absolutely fantastic, Rich. I mean, I remember it 26 years ago, 25 years ago, 24 years ago. There is an awakening going on. We've just got to keep our feet on the ground and hold a streetwise perception and not get pulled in to the circus. And great things can happen.
Look after yourself. Thanks again.
Cheers, Rich.
Brilliant. David Icke on the line to us there from his home on the Isle of Wight. Yes, Manchester, January 14th, 21st in Dublin at the Helix Theatre. It's the O2 Apollo in Manchester. Estonia a week on Saturday. Amsterdam before that. And then, as I said, an absolute glut of dates. I reckon by January, they'll probably have 100 dates booked for 2017. Quite incredible.